very first meditation of the retreat, I thought I'll spend some time to explain to some of the new attendees how to conduct, how to carry out the Vipassana meditation, how to do contemplative meditation. The way to conduct a meditation is not to have some form of a state of peace or state of calm. The point of doing a meditation, the Buddhist meditation, is to actually think about the contents that you have just heard from Dr. Ranatunga, to think about what he has said. This doesn't mean that you think random thoughts. It's following a certain train of thought that I will soon explain, but it's actively thinking and contemplating and letting you absorb what you are thinking and understanding what this Dhamma actually means, what it's actually saying. So I will now spend the next 20 to 30 minutes explaining what Dr. Ranatunga taught us and how to conduct the actual meditation. So in his discourse, Dr. Ranatunga spoke at the very end about starting from the birth, contemplating about the birth, then aging, sickness, and death. So what you got to think about is, what is the problem? Now we are here at this retreat because we want to learn something, and also because we have a certain problem. And this problem is a suffering. And as you heard Dr. Ranatunga explain, that birth is suffering. And it's suffering no matter where you are born. You heard him talk about birth in hell, which is quite obviously suffering, as well as the birth in the plane of departed and in the animal realm. Then he also explained our lives in the human realms, as well as in the heavenly realms. And the point is that wherever we are born, we will suffer. Even in the heavenly realms, there is an end and we'll fall back. Even in that time in those heavenly realms, there is suffering. So this is the problem. The problem is we are born, and the birth itself is suffering. We can see this in our day-to-day lives. And not only that, the birth leads to aging. Even for a child that is a 1-year-old, when we have that celebration, the child actually has aged. The mother will say, oh, used to be just a little baby, so soft and cuddly, and now it's 1 and is walking and all that. We are talking about the aging of the child. And then we have sickness. I mean, this year or last year, we all know everything about sickness. I mean, who expected the coronavirus to show up? So clearly, no matter how much we think we know, we are surprised by all sorts of sicknesses. So this should be something quite familiar across the world, especially coming from last year and this year. And then of course there is death. And we know death is real. We've seen people who have died. We've heard of little babies who have died. And we know it's there. And our minds are not disputing that we will die. But our minds haven't accepted that it can happen at any time. We are faced with death every day. But we don't really have understood that. We keep thinking it'll happen in the future sometime. We don't really prepare for that. But we know it will happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So this is the issue that we have. We have birth, aging, sickness, and death. And underneath that, we have all this suffering, the sadnesses, and the lamentation, and not getting what we want. All this whole mass of suffering is there because we have been born. So the meditation you should start by contemplating about these parts. Think, actively think. Yes, when I'm born in hell, it will be suffering. When I'm born in animal realm, it will be suffering. My current life, there is suffering. We have to tolerate heat, hunger, famines, all sorts of stuff. And just the stress of life and all sorts of things that we suffer in our human life. So think about that. See the issue, see the problem, see how we age, see how we have grown, how things are going downhill. See the sicknesses, see the troubles that's coming through, and then realize we are heading and we will no doubt die. And then once you have contemplated to this level and you recall the death, this is when you visit the funeral parlor, as Dr. Ranatunga said. Remember time, you've been to a funeral, and then realize that one day the body in the coffin will be yours, not anybody else's. It's a matter of when, not if. It will be yours. Then start there. So having gone through birth, contemplating birth, aging, sickness, and death as the issue, once you come to death, take the dead body. Take your body as being now is dead, and then watch your body deteriorate. You saw some of the pictures that Dr. Ranatunga shared of how a uncovered dead body will wither away, how the pus and the worms and the maggots and just the disintegration of the body that we look after so much right now actually happens, and how disgusting it is. It's really important to focus on the true nature of your body when it is dead, how it will disintegrate, and see that yuckiness, that disgustingness. And it's important to contemplate that. You don't have to have visions, you don't have to see images, but at least contemplate it. Contemplate that at the stage of death. And once you have seen that yuckiness, this is when you ask, why did this happen? Why are we with these disgusting type bodies? How did this happen? And once you feel that, and when you do this properly, the meditation, you will feel that disgusting nature, and as a result, you will actually feel your mind expand rather than being tightened and limited into our ordinary way of life. When you start to see the truth, the mind expands. And then this is when we look at the other part that Dr. Ranatunga told us about the concentration meditation. So in the concentration sutta, the Buddha says, and bhikkhus, what is the origin of form? What is the origin of feeling? And so on. So when we asked ourselves, when we saw the dead body and how it's deteriorating, and we thought to ourselves, well, how did this happen? How did this originate? We look at to this sutta, and here it says, bhikkhus, one seeks delight, one welcomes, one remains holding. Now put these three phrases into your head, because this is effectively the core of this meditation. So what is seeking delight? Now Dr. Ranatunga explained with several examples, and one of the most common examples that everyone can relate to is food. And he was saying how we add, for example, some salt or some spice because we are not satisfied with what we've got. And that is the process of seeking delight. Or another example is the TV. We look at what's on, we turn it on, and we flick through the different channels saying, well, What do I feel like watching now? And we find something that's acceptable for us. That is the process of seeking delight. So when you are meditating, think about the times when you were seeking delight, be it in a food, be it in a TV show, or maybe when you went shopping. What were you looking for? The best value, the best, most popular item, or whatever it is. Could be a computer, could be a car, could be a house, or could be people. Maybe you want to hang out with a certain type of people, your friends or the cool kids or whoever it is. That is how we are seeking delight. And once we have sought delight and found it, we welcome it. So in the example of a TV show, we say, oh, yep, we're going to go with this one. We're going to watch this now. And then once we're happy with it, then we remain holding. So if it's a soap opera, a teledrama or whatever, then we come back to watch that show again the next time, whether it's the next day at the same time or the next week at the same time. We remain holding on to it. And the same thing with the example of a food. We will want to eat that same thing. And we will insist that we want to get that particular flavor or whatever. So we remain holding on to it. Another example that I can think of directly is deciding what to cook for dinner tonight. So that is the seeking delight. We had chicken last week, so maybe I'll do lamb today, or we'll do fish because we haven't had any fish this whole week. The process of deciding what to cook for dinner, there we are seeking delight. And then we come to a conclusion, we welcome it. Yep, okay, chicken it is, or fish it is, and go ahead and get it. And we remain holding. Now we can't wait to have that particular food. When for the fish curry, well, now we are waiting for it and we will make that. So those three phrases are really important to understand. Seeking delight, welcoming, and remain holding. Now in the meditation time, you need to think of a time when you sought delight and you remember it. And you remember how you welcomed it and you thought, yep, I like this, I'm going to stick with it. And then you remain holding on to it. So it can be easier perhaps to pick something that's close to your heart, that you remember very well. And then see how it aligns with what the Buddha is saying. That once one seeks delight in form, welcomes it, and remain holding to it, as a consequence, the delight arises. In other words, we are happy to have received that thing again. So, like the Dr. Rantunga explained that example of the food going from your mouth, in your tongue, and then once we swallow it, it's gone, and we want to take another bite, and we expect that same taste to come with every new bite, and this willingness to repeat this process is the delight. And when the delight is there, the delight in form is itself the clinging. So here comes this clinging to the form. And then with the clinging as the condition comes the existence. So, and then with existence as a condition is the birth. And there we go from birth to aging, sickness, death. So to understand this, see how this process of seeking delight, welcoming and remains holding actually brings about the clinging and the becoming of this existence. So I can take an example myself where I saw a beautiful glass vase somewhere in a shopping center, and there was the delight. I welcomed it. I thought, oh yeah, that'll look good in my house. And I didn't let go of that thought. I remained holding on to it. I'll come back next day with the money so I can buy it. So the clinging arised, delight arised, the clinging to it arised. And lo and behold, the glass vase exists in my house. It is created. Now, the person who didn't want that vase, it doesn't exist in their house. So, of course, now once the glass vase is in my house, I gotta look after it, and it fades, it might crack, it might get knocked over. It'll eventually become dust one day. So there's the birth, aging, sickness, and death in a very, very mundane example. But what you want to do in your meditation is think about the time when you sought delight, and then see how the form, whether it's a curry or whether it's a vase or a phone or whatever it is, anything that categorized as a form actually came to exist because of you doing the seeking delight, welcoming, and holding on to that. So during the meditation, think about them, but also try and think about on the larger sense. Now, with the food example, in order to get the taste, you need to have a mouth with a tongue and with the taste buds in them. So not only are we craving, say, the curry or a particular food, we are also seeking delight in our mouth, in having a mouth. So think about that. On a grosser sense, we are wanting and we are bringing to existence our body. Because of seeking delight, welcoming and remaining holding. And then with this clinging arising, that conditions the existence to arise. And that leads to the birth. You heard the example from Dr. Ranatunga of the monk who was handling the robes, and he was quite attracted to it. He saw delight in it, welcomed it, and he was remaining holding on to it at the time of death. And as a result, the clinging to that cloth, when he was reborn as a moth, so that the moth can actually come into contact and with this cloth, and it satisfied his desire, the clinging. So you see, this is how it works. So going back now to where we were before, we were thinking of the dead body, and we said, well, this disgusting body, how did it come to be? Now we can see it's because we were looking for it, we were wanting it in order to experience whatever forms and feelings that we can get. So Dr. Rantunga explained as an example that we might see something we like, a jelly bean, for one example, and we might put $2. And that is the saving to have it again. Whether it's a car, you might put something, another amount, a house or a person, whatever it is. So we are recreating what we want to, what we had felt before and what we want again in the future. We are remaining holding. Having sought delight, having welcomed it and having held on to it, we are creating, we are aspiring, we are trying to get that same feeling back. And as a result, we are constructing. So we construct, effectively, we constructed our bodies. So this is the answer to the question, how did this body arise? How did this dead body that is now dead, that is oozing with pus and all sorts of disgusting things, come to arise? It's because we wanted it to arise. We constructed it. So now you can see we've come a full circle. We started with birth is suffering, aging, sickness, and death. And we contemplated how this dead body arose. And we realized that as a result of seeking delight, remaining holding, clinging comes to arise, and with clinging as a condition, existence comes to arrive, and with existence comes birth, and with birth comes aging, sickness, and death, and the whole shebang of suffering comes in as a result. So we've done a full circle. And this is what you want to do in the meditation. You want to contemplate. Think about these examples. Start with something small if that's easier for you to accept. The point here is not to repeat the words over and over again, but to understand what they mean. Understand in a practical sense what they mean. And you can also contemplate on the origin of the feeling. So we talked mostly before on examples of the form or objects. We can also think or contemplate about feelings. For example, you may have heard the term a warm, fuzzy feeling. You know, we like to have those nice feelings. And we do the same for those. We seek delight in the feeling, welcomes it, and remain holding on to it. So imagine a time when you wanted to feel something. It could be something as, you know, on a cold day, you come inside and you want to be near the heater. You want to have that feeling of warmth. Or maybe it's more a feeling that boosts your ego. You want to be seen with people, or you look at an old photo and you see a feeling that you get. You can apply the same contemplation to a feeling if that is more strong for you in your own examples, and see how the feeling comes to arise and the delight, and then how that also brings about clinging, and the clinging as a condition comes existence. So in order for us to feel, we need to have a body, we need to have all these nerves, we need to have all these actual a full body. So you can take small examples, but then expand out to a greater example, and the ultimate example, the Buddha's example, is our own body. So the other thing that I want to stress here is that sometimes some people go through this meditation very quickly. They look at the birth, in the health, in the animal realms, and then they say, yep, it's all suffering. And then they think, yep, I did this, I crave this, and kind of repeating what's in the sutta. The point here is that you take your examples and you actually feel how this Dhamma is true. So like Dr. Rantunga said as an example, that think of this as first following the instructions, and you're cooking, following the recipe, and then you close the recipe book and you do it on your own. So you're saying, yes, I did seek delight, and I am, I did welcome it, and I am remaining holding on to it. And you kind of tick and you validate. And who are you validating? Is that you're validating the Dhamma and the Buddha. And you're understanding, not just because someone said so, you're understanding that yes, this is indeed the truth. This is indeed how it works, how it happened, how I gave a rise to what is effectively a dead body in the end. And then you see almost the answers to the question, the problem that we said, yes, there's suffering here. We see the problem, the birth being suffering, the ongoing aging, sickness, and then the death. And we see the lamentation, the sorrow, and not being able to get what we want. And then you see that the process here is indeed the truth. So if you can honestly see in your own mind, see through your own wisdom, it is because I saw delight in such and such that I got this clinging to this. And because of that clinging, I created this existence of it, and it started and it came to be, the birth took place. Seeing it through your own wisdom is what you want to achieve during this meditation. You want to be able to go into a certain depth, not just repeating the words. So it's really important that you take your time, starting from the first parts of contemplating birth and seeing how there is suffering, that birth is suffering and the aging is suffering. The sickness is suffering and the death is suffering. Seeing then the dead body, then contemplating. Don't forget the part. Once you have a dead body, don't just sit there looking at it. Remember, how did this come to be? Remember these phrases. One seeks delight, one welcomes, one remains holding. And then put your example and see how you understand that, yes, it is because of this. And when you can honestly see that a part of this dependent origination, a part of it where you see, oh yes, it's because I had this delight in me that came to clinging, and then therefore the existence comes to be. If you understand that, and that's what Dr. Ranatunga says is your lucky moment, because there's a certain wisdom within yourself during the meditation that comes up and arises. And that's what we're aiming for during all these meditations that we will do during this retreat. That's what you're aiming for. You're learning, but you're learning the contents, but you're also learning to apply it and then understand it through yourself. One word of warning is, don't try to therefore stop things. Don't say, all right, well, this is seeking delight is the reason I'm going to suffering, therefore I won't see delight. I'm not going to add salt to my meal or whatever. That's not the point. And that will let you distract you from gaining more insight. The point is that you want to watch and monitor and see and understand how this Dhamma is working, how we are working, how the samsara is working, how our minds are working. That's what you want to see. We're not here to stop everything and suddenly change our lifestyle from day one right here or from this second. That's not the point. Then you are going to have a practical conflicts and clashes, and then you end off kind of daydreaming of other things and losing the meditation. You want to be thinking, but you're focusing on what you're thinking. You're focusing on the Dhamma, on the Buddha's words. So don't try to make some sort of a resolution saying, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to be looking at computers or cars or looking for watching TV. That's not the point. The point is, find the times when you did seek delight and when you are seeking delight. Be honest to yourself. So it's not about being a perfect person. It's about seeing that we are not perfect people. That this is what we actually do. And the more honest you are to yourself, the deeper insight you can get. And that's what we want to do in these meditations. Be it a form, be it a feeling, they're the easiest to use rather than looking at things like perception and volitional formation. Unless you've done this before, then maybe you can look at those. But definitely for people who are starting this for the first time or who are relatively new, use examples of form, so that any object, and feelings, if you can, to contemplate on this core part of the meditation. So when you see, yes, indeed, it's because I saw delight in this particular thing and I was holding on to it and wanting it. Yes, I had this desire, this clinging, and therefore it came to be. And as a result, I got all these issues, the birth, the aging of it, and then eventually the breakup of it and the death. The reason was because of my clinging to it. If you see that truly and honestly to yourself, then that's a great achievement. That's the lucky time that Dr. Ranthanga talks of. Okay, so I think I've covered effectively the core parts of the meditation. So for the next 30 minutes, let's meditate like this. Thank you.
Welcome, Gayandi. Thank you for your very welcome suggestion for doing the meditation at the end of the first session. Now, I would like to request those who are participating in the discussion, if you have any question, to raise so that Gayandi and if possible by myself, and perhaps if Manu and Kamani are available, they can also join and answer some of those questions. All right, let's see whether some of our participants have any questions. Thank you.
Everyone silent. Why do I need to study dukkha when we live in dukkha?
Can you please repeat that question?
Why do I need to study dukkha when we live in dukkha?
Was
And
the
do you have
question
any
saying,
solution for
was the question saying, why are we studying the dukkha when we are living in dukkha? Is that right?
Yes.
Well, we are studying the dukkha because we live in dukkha. If we are not in that situation, there is no need to, if there was no suffering, there is nothing, there's no problem to fix. This is, the point is that because there is suffering and our natural, our desires hide that suffering, and our normal state of being and continuing in samsara is about putting it onto the side and replacing it with all sorts of concepts which try and overcome it, like we take it as, oh, it's a fact of life, or we justify it as that is the way it is, and say, well, there's no other option. People die, you think, well, time was up, or whatever reason, and we think about positive thinking and moving forward and continuing ahead without understanding why that dukkha existed in the first place. We take it as a given, or this is the best we can get, by ignoring nibbana as an option. So because we have suffering, because we have this dukkha, only way to get out of it is to study it. If you don't study it, or if you don't acknowledge it in the first place, we're not going to be able to get out of it. It's, that's what we do. If what everybody does is we accept it as part of life and think that's just the way it is. And that's why we all keep on continuing from birth to birth. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Let me add a simple one sentence or two sentences. Now, she said that if we are in dukkha, why do you want to study? I think a good example would be, imagine that you are going in a bus or a motor vehicle like a car, and then you suddenly see that the car is going to go over the precipice. And what if you are aware that car is in danger and it is going to go over the precipice? Would you not think that you should jump out of the car? So likewise, if you realize that you are in dukkha, and what you should do is therefore to get rid of the dukkha. So I remember when I was talking to Dr. Ranatunga a few years back, he said he has been studying various forms of dukkha for years, something like 20 years or something, or more than that. So by studying the fact that we are in different types of dukkha, we realize that we should get out of dukkha. That's another way of answering what Gayandi has given as an answer to you. Thank you. Next question.
Teruwan saranai Gayandi mage මේ නීස් එයාගේ ක්වෙස්චන් එක එවලා තියෙනවා මම ඒක ප්ලේ කරන්නම්. Teruwan saranai.
ප්‍රශ්න අහුවොත් ඔයාට උත්තර නැති වෙයි. මට තියෙන ප්‍රධාන ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි අද දවසේ වැඩ ටික කොහොමද ඉවර කරගන්නේ. ඊට මොන වගේ මරාලයක් පහත් වෙයිද උදේට ඔෆිස් එකේ. තව වීකෙන්ඩ් එකෙත් වැඩ තියෙයිද කරන්න. ඔය වගේ ප්‍රශ්න තමයි ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් තියෙන්නේ ගොඩක්.
තෙරුවන් සරණයි.
කියන්නේ අනිත්‍යතාවය.
තෙරුවන් සරණයි.
So I don't know if Auntie, I'll translate that question into English. So from what I understood, what she said is, how do I do the tasks of the day, kind of thing. Is that right? Like, how do I get on to with work and plan the day, kind of idea?
Yes, that's right.
Well, I would say I think in that little the recording in the meditation, I think I said something about a warning about not to clash this with trying to stop everything, because the purpose is to understand, and once you understand, the effects of that understanding will flow naturally. So I mean, you do what you have to do. We came into this current state because of the karma that we bought. And there was, I mean, just to make it in a mundane sense, you got a job because of you need to pay your bills, you need to live, and we are living in a world of of monetary, financially run world. So as a result, we need to conform to those way of life. We are not privileged to living the right livelihood. So it's a matter of separating out the supramundane part and the mundane part, and to not let them clash. They can, once you get the understanding, you can lead them parallel almost. I mean, eventually it will merge. The mundane part will die out, but trying to force it off, I personally, this is my opinion, of course, I personally don't think it can be cut off. I think it's something that comes as a form of the way we think. The more we understand the suffering, and the more we see the negative, that when there is an option of nibbana, why are we doing this? Once that becomes more and more clear, and once that becomes more the wiring in our thinking is modified, I think it naturally progresses. So when we go shopping, a person who used to go shopping and buy, you have 5 things in your list, but you buy 15 things instead. Once the mental attitude and the wisdom is there, the one who bought 15 will eventually just stick to buying the 5 that they needed. And eventually the 5 in the list will become only 3 and become 2 and only 1 in the end. So I think that's the part of developing the Dhamma. And when I mean developing, understanding it. And then things you will prioritize things differently to the way someone, instead of the way what someone who doesn't have the understanding will prioritize. They will prioritize in a way to continue and to avoid the suffering, in a way to buffer the suffering. So someone with the understanding will take the path of giving less chance for this birth to arise, whether it's a house or a car or a whatever. I think it's a natural progression. So for the question of what do I do and structure your work, well, you do what you need to do. It's in a practical sense, I think. Hope that makes sense. I'm happy to have follow-up discussion rather than a one answer.
I have a question. I don't know if it really relates, but I'm in uni and I struggle to, I procrastinate a lot. I don't know if this is related in any way, but I was asking, you know how one of the 8-fold paths, like one of the values or whatever, is effort. I'm not sure how you build like mental dexterity to the point where you like, I just keep pushing things back. Like, how would you suggest to not do that?
Yeah, look, I think everyone procrastinates to some level. And, if you think about why you procrastinate, I'm talking now mundane, completely mundane stuff, right? Like uni work or homework or whatever. I think it's because the motivation is not there, right? The motivation is not there for multiple reasons. Like I procrastinate sometimes because I know I can do it in 5 minutes. So I would rather do it in 5 minutes than not put half an hour to it. And I'll, do it in the last minute rush, and I feel confident I can do it. Other times I'll procrastinate because I really don't want to do it. I don't enjoy it. I don't want it. I don't really care what the outcome is. So if you can think about, why do you procrastinate? Is the subject matter just not interesting? That's just on a mundane side. Now, but because you mentioned the Eightfold Path, the effort in the Eightfold Path is very different to what we call effort on a day-to-day basis. It is the same effort, as in putting effort towards it, but there is four parts, 4 aspects of the right effort. So the word to remember is, in the Eightfold Path, there is this preposition which is the right. In English is the right view, the right thought. So here the right with the capital R is very much on the supramundane level. So when it comes to effort, there is a fourfold effort, which the first one is the effort for the unarisen evil, in the translation of the negative side, the unarisen negatives from arising. So the effort to think of it as the muddy stream coming into your house. You've already got mud in your house. You're not thinking about cleaning it just yet. Your first effort is to try and prevent any more mud from coming into your house. That's your first line of attack, of effort. So whatever effort you put in is to stop more negative things coming in. That's the first one. Then the subsequent ones is the effort to discard the dirt, the negative that's arisen, and then you got to effort to sorry, I'm just gone blank right now. I've got it in Sinhalese, not in English. The effort to raise, to cultivate the positive ones. So basically, to do the Eightfold Path, and then to the final effort is to what's the right word in English? To grow the positive ones that's already arisen. So if you can try and put parallels to mundane ones, like the effort to stop your distractions from doing your studies, and the effort to get not let your friends come in and talk to you, or turn the phone off, or something like that. And then the other effort is actually getting down to doing your work, and then the final one would be to cross-check or proofread or whatever. But that's just a mundane level. The supramundane is a touch deeper than that.
Yeah, out of all of the Eightfold Path, I think there's 3 that I don't really understand. One is effort, and the other ones are the difference between thought and view, because in my head I think they're quite similar, but I was wondering if you could go into depth about how they're quite different.
Yeah, so it is subtle to explain thought and view. So the very first thing is the view, the right view. So the right view is, let me see. Think of a case where in your mundane world you use as a view. So almost like something you haven't quite had a complete thought about it,
Mhm.
but it's the underlying condition for your thought. So
Like my values.
something like that, something
Okay.
like that. I wouldn't use the word value on its own. You could use belief, but that's not the right word either. It's your view of things. You know how people say have a positive view of life.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So um, so
Is it
a
like your
view
morals?
is,
How like is it like how you go about your day-to-day life based on like your fundamental morals? Is that what okay.
I think that's right. I think it's a combination of all of those things: your morals, your attitude, your how you generally see things. Let's say, like, something like, we may have a view to complete that you have. Let's say if you're in uni, you have a concept in the back of your head that says it's a right thing is to complete your degree.
Mhm.
There's something that says giving up and going and doing a part-time job is probably not the good thing. So you have a
Mhm.
view, you haven't quite even necessarily thought about it, or
Yeah.
at least thought about in your head, but there's an underlying conditioning that
Mm.
says this is what I should be doing,
Yeah.
whether it's bought from your raised, how you were raised or whatever.
Mm.
It's that view that life is suffering is
Right.
very a fundamental view, and we don't have that. We try to, the people who try to meditate
Yeah.
develop, but on myself, after 24 hours,
Mm.
this 24 hours are spending saying life is not suffering. Yeah, that's the view.
Mhm.
The thought is built on that too. So in the technical terms, the right view is the knowing the Four Noble Truths. The birth is suffering, aging is suffering, and knowing about suffering, and then the reason for suffering, and the getting rid of cessation of suffering, and the Eightfold Path, the path for cessation of suffering. So that loops around back into the Eightfold Path. So those are just, at this stage, they're technical terms, they're phrases, but trying to get that as a base view is kind of what the meditations are about. It's about developing that, like, let's say you see a child building up a stack of like Lego blocks or something.
Yeah.
That child's view is that this is the greatest thing. Like, this is going to make
Right. Mm.
As adult, you look at that kid and say, "Yeah, I'm going to pack it up in another half an hour or something."
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the difference in views, you see.
Mhm. So it's like the perspective you take on life, because like even when you meet people, they like sometimes, because I feel like with Buddhism or like the way we see life, it can be seen as depressing, and I guess it's like a perspective that you take. So is view like what your perspective on life is like? Is that what you?
It is to some level, but it is not a case of, I can understand people seeing that whole depression thing, because it is like, oh, well, you can't do anything, it's suffering. The odd thing, or what's kind of amazing about the Dhamma, is that the more you see the reality of things, the more liberating it is. It's anything but depressing.
Yeah.
Freeing. Like, it's almost like saying, if you had a project or work to do, and you were told it has to be done in a particular set of software, particular tools, and suddenly you realize that if you had flicked the button or something, all of those tools become a heck of a lot easier to do, or there's another way of doing it. It's a little bit like that. Like, I personally feel like we are constantly trying to make things work, really trying to make things work, and the thing is, they do work most of the time, and that leads us to think, okay, it is doable. But then when they break down, we forget what the real reasons for the breakdown is. We
Right.
try to find external reasons. rather than the fundamental reasons. The Buddhism doesn't have any loopholes, right? Most theories have a loophole somewhere where you can wiggle your way out.
Right.
When you see the Dhamma in its, in its greatest glory, well,
Mhm.
even you understand it, you find that there's no loopholes. There's no.
When you say, sorry, when you say loopholes, does that mean like, sorry, I'm talking a lot, with like Christianity and stuff, you know, when like bad things happen, they blame it on God. So when like, well, I'm not really sure about how everything in Christianity works, but that's just my understanding of it. But with like Buddhism, is it saying that like your fate is like in your hands, like you could, like your karma and stuff, is that what you mean? As in, you can't blame it on someone else?
Yes, it's going down to a very fundamental. There is the surface level Buddhism, where you can say, yes, it is. You create your own destiny, basically. But also on a more deep level, you say, well, because I exist, that I feel stuff. I exist. If something goes wrong, we tend to say, well, it's because of that external factor, and that's why I am sad, I am upset because such and such didn't work, whether it's a material or a person or whatever. But if you think about it, let's say, a glass broke in a house.
Mm.
Now I am upset because this said glass has broken, because the reason I'm sad about it is because that was my glass.
Right.
Now, somebody else's glass broke, I wouldn't even.
You wouldn't care. Yeah.
So the problem here was not that the glass broke. The problem is because of the my part that was attached to it. And seeing that, oh, this suffering happened because I had taken it as me, myself, and as mine. So when you see that in that fundamental level, you start to see, okay, maybe I shouldn't get too close to whatever it is,
Yeah.
within practical limits. It's not depressing when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
It is motivating. I hope that answered some of your questions.
No, it does. Thank you.
Karu uncle, did you have anything else to add to some of those?
Well, I was listening to you. I think your expression of the what you call the part of the answers is very good, because I thought that if I were to answer that, I wouldn't go to the extent that you were doing, and you did a marvelous job on that. But I was thinking, just yesterday I was explaining as part of the additional explanation needed for Dr. Ranatunga's presentation on the what we call the effort. As you explained, the efforts are of two parts. One is unwholesome and the other is wholesome. So as part of the answer that you gave to the previous questionnaire also, we can reduce the unwholesome parts that we are doing by thinking, oh, I have been doing, let's say, gardening, and therefore because of that, digging the what you call soil, etc., I was killing animals, so I want to reduce it. So you keep on reducing it. You don't suddenly stop it. But if you want to suddenly stop, like getting into robes and going to become a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, is a different aspect. But as you said, gradually you begin to understand this process and then slowly change it. So reduce the unwholesome part of the what you call the effort, and increase the wholesome part of the effort, so that you create yourself the corresponding or the suitable surrounding to develop the mind. So for the part of effort, Buddha said that he rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unrisen, wholesome mental state. You can see that I am going to do some effort. You can think and then keep quiet. You are not doing the job properly. because the effort needs the mind as well. So the exerts his mind and strives. So I think your explanation is very good, and I just want to add that part. So we can slowly change from the so many unwholesome things, and then slowly stop those things and go to the wholesome aspect, and then we can reach our desired nibbana. Thank you, Gayandi. All right, any other questions?
Do we have to meditate daily?
Well, no one, it's as you can. I mean, I would, someone who is guilty of not meditating daily, I would still say you should, but I myself try, again, it's, I don't think there is a have to, it's not a law, but it's the extent to which you find that you are getting somewhere, that you are not doing this through discipline, you're doing this for a reason. Why do you meditate is the question, and you see that the meditation has a wholesome impact on you. You see that liberation. The more you spend time towards it, the more benefit getting out of this suffering, and the risk of being born in hells and animal realms and all that comes in. Then you are motivated to meditate. And I know people who meditate twice a day, some for longer, some for shorter. Again, my feeling is, if you have the time, that would be a routine. If you can get into that routine of meditating in whatever shape or form, it's definitely beneficial. And also, it's like anything else. If you have a regular thing, there is a more, it can build up one behind, beside the other quickly. Whereas if you meditate once and then you come back to it in a month's time, you probably spend the first or all of the meditation recapping what you were doing before. Like anything else, like reading a book even, right? If you read the first chapter and you leave it for a month, you got to go back and read the first chapter again. So if you read it every day, then you can keep up to it. So yeah, the more regular it is, the more benefits that you will get at the end of it.
Let me add a little bit of a what you call the color to that answer. Personally, I would probably meditate about 80% of the days. That means some days I miss it out because there are other things that I have to do, or I have to attend in preparation for discussion, etc. But I noticed that since Dr. Ranatunga used to walk around and then meditate while walking, for the purpose of meditation, you don't have to sit down and do the meditation. While walking, you can think. So you are becoming mindful all the time what you are doing, and that comes into your life as part of the daily routine. It is like when we were kids, we used to learn different times table, 2 times, 3 times, up to 12 times and beyond. Now, when you are going to the shopping mall or something, when you want to do some calculation, don't you get your 2 times table automatically into the mind? So likewise, meditation, if you have time, you can do even 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something, but other time, be mindful. Then meditation comes as part and parcel of it. I think that should be the way that we should be doing that, I hope. Thank you.
Yeah, I might add to that, Karu uncle, is that sometimes once you had some insight, some of those insights show themselves in different situations. So it's not technically a meditation, as in, like you said, sitting down and in whatever, cross-legged or whatever. It could be as you're walking, or any other time, just take a break and you start thinking about what the Dhamma has said, what the Buddha has said, and some bits of, it's concentration at the end of the day. It's concentration on the Eightfold Path, and little links of the dependent origination might show up. But at the same time, it's also good to foster that actively. Say, okay, for this half an hour or 10 minutes or whatever, I will even read or listen to a recording of Dr. Rantunga's discourses. If you are actively listening to that, you probably find you're already meditating, because you're actively listening to the mind, the mental path that he's taking you through. So there's lots of different ways you could, in quotes, meditate.
All right. Are there any other questions? I think we can probably close the session in about 10 or 12 minutes. Are there any further questions? Excuse me, I don't think there are any further questions coming up today. Is there any possibility or is there any desire for us to continue this session the next 2 or 3 weeks on Fridays, just like this? Can somebody like Manjali give me a reply, please? Thank you.
අයියා මේ ගයන්දිට මේ නංගිට පුළුවන් වෙයිද දන්නේ නැහැ නේද වෙලා තියෙයිද කරන්න අපිට
I think, I probably, so today is the 26th, so it's that December 3rd is the next Friday. I think I can on December 3rd. I think that should be okay next Friday. I just didn't want to make a commitment because now, all this stuff's coming up with holiday season, so I wasn't sure every week, but I think next Friday is possible. The same scenario where I'll get home around 5:45 Sydney time. So if there's an interest, I'm happy to continue a discussion.
Okay, I think that is good. If you can join again next week. So are there any further questions for today?